And there's a certain intersection of axes that hopefully can work in a confluent way when talking about specifically this practice of dialogos. One of the things that John and I have been talking a lot about recently is how the, shall we say, the social dimension. I mean, one of the things that dialogos is as a function is that relationships between individuals help to inculcate and transform an individual's relationship with being itself, right? It's using the sociability of dialogue as a symbolic affordance for reconfiguring the relationality of everything, right? In a more fundamental way, right? And so the social dimension of dialogue is instrumental in a sense, right? Yes, there's communion that's important. Yes, there's sociability for its own sake, which is not unimportant, but fundamentally those are instrumental too, right? It is a relational transmutation of the way that we're confronting ourselves and knowing ourselves as well. And that's why the social dimension of Dialogos, I think, has a kind of reciprocally opening. Why don't we use that? Your variation of Mark Lewis's term, John. It has a reciprocally opening relationship with that same work as applied to the interior dimension of experience, right? That's where the Jungian stuff, I think, comes in beautifully, right? Because you have, in the therapeutic context, for instance, right, you have this sort of transference, countertransference relationship that is operating, if it's working effectively, harmoniously with to use his terms for just a moment, right, the ego's confrontation with the self, right, where it has to do that kind of Copernican revolution of realizing that it's actually not at the center of its own psyche. It's actually not the center of its own being. It has to, what it has to do, it has to differentiate itself from that infinitizing side in order to confront it and reckon with it properly, so that it's not unwittingly possessed and overwhelmed by it in ways that propound the self-deception. And in the same way, what's happening when we're in the throes of meaningful dialogue is that we're using one another to actually differentiate ourselves in order that we can develop a relationship that is more integral, internal to itself.